America were shaped like turtle boats. And of course, we're told that the Jaredite boats were a dish unto a dish. And we're going to see that in another drawing here pretty quick. This is a petroglyph of Turtle Island. This is in New York, in the Bronx, real close to the center. This is a drawing. This is writing of the Algonquins, which we cannot read, but this represents North America to them as Turtle Island. Here is Red Sky's migration chart. He also is of the Algonquin family. This one is on display at St. Ignace, Michigan. If you were living up there and you were familiar with the St. Lawrence Seaway, you would recognize every one of these points along the river of the St. Lawrence Seaway. But up here, it says St. Lawrence with a question mark, and it's been cut off. My friend Fred Ridholm that put me onto this, he asked the curator at the Michigan Museum, well, does that mean that these guys came from the east? And the curator said, well, no, we all know all the Indians came across the Bering Strait. And Fred said, well, the problem with that is there's no evidence of a mass of people moving across Canada into present-day Great Lakes. And the curator said, well, it has to be because they couldn't have come anywhere else because they didn't have any boats. So having not accepted that, Fred continued his search. Next one, please. In Canada, he found the complete migration chart. Look what's on the end here. Here's the part that's missing right here. Atlantic seashore, Atlantic Ocean. Look at the boats. Turtle boats, Algonquin, northeast. We came from the east. How many people here read the Book of Mormon? How many people here know what diffusion means? Not too many. If you accept the Book of Mormon that Lehi and Nephi sailed to America by boat at 600 BC, or the Jaredites came here at 2300 BC, you are a diffusionist. So you're already in the club, whether you like it or not. You can't get out. Okay? What's so important about this is that this is the Atlantic Monthly magazine. They wrote this article about all these theories about Madoc around 600 to 800 AD showing up in America, the Chinese on the west coast of the U.S. at 2000 BC, and Hebrews coming to America, which is talking about Mormons, Book of Mormon. Okay? In here, Vine Deloria Jr., who just passed away about 3 months ago, he's the chief spokesman for the Algonquin tribe. He was an orator. He would go around and talk all across the country. And Brother Deloria Jr., I call him brother because we're pretty good friends, he said before a group like this at a dinner meeting one night, all full of anthropologists and archaeologists, they asked me, said, Vine, tell us for sure now, where did your people come from? And Vine said, I'll tell you where we came from. We left a homeland that was in turmoil. We crossed the Atlantic Ocean in ships. We sailed into the mouth of the St. Lawrence Seaway. We sailed down that river into the Great Lakes of North America, and we settled this country from the center outward. Well, when he finished that statement, you got to realize everybody out here is Bering Strait people. The place just about went crazy. And when it calmed down after all the roars and the grunts and the groans, finally someone stood up and said, Vine, you know, we've helped your Indian people all these years. We've helped you establish NAGPRA, Grave Protection Act, and all these other kind of acts to protect your Native American stuff. Why have you not told us after all these years where you came from? Why have you waited so long? And Vine very calmly said, you never asked. And that's the truth. Here we have it. Our archaeologists have taken the Hopewell culture and said there are definitely two distinct groups. One group came in from the north, a second group came in from the south. We're going to call the north group the Havana Hopewell, because their biggest city they built was in present-day Havana, Illinois. We're going to call, this is the south group, I'm sorry, this is the southern group, Havana. The northern group is the Scioto Hopewell, which they settled in Ohio. But eventually, both these groups, through archaeological data, merged and became one big family or one nation. Now there's another parallel for the Book of Mormon. What happened with the Nephites and the Mulekites? South and north, and eventually they merged, correct? Nice parallel. And this is the data from our archaeologists on the Hopewell group, 300 BC, 400 AD. They'll all agree by 400 AD, the Hopewell people were no more. They're gone. This is a map just showing the migration of the southern group moving into the northern group's territory. This is in Griffin's book. He's an archaeologist in the state of Michigan. This is taken from Ancient Monuments by Squire, recognizing the earthworks of the north and the earthworks of the south, going from western New York all the way to Illinois, and seeing that these people did things in a common way, and suggesting that they were indeed one people and eventually becoming one. Next one. This is a map of the area. This is the Hopewell turf. This up here, of course, the Great Lakes, coming down here on the west side of the Mississippi, making this big circle. This is the Hopewell country. Now I want you to notice right here, would you not agree that southern Illinois is the center of the land approximately? Is that fair to assume? Yes? Because this map is made by our archaeologists. Now, in the year 16 AD, Laconius, governor of the land, had a problem. The Gadianton robbers had fielded a standing army that was beating the Nephites, and it also beat the Lamanites. And you remember in your Book of Mormon history, the Nephites and Lamanites laid down their differences, and they merged together to fight a common enemy called the Gadianton robbers. 16 AD. Up here, you can see here that they should gather together their women and their children to one place. He caused that fortifications should be built round about them, and the strength thereof should be exceedingly great. And he caused that armies both of the Nephites and of the Lamanites, or of all them who were numbered among the Nephites, should be placed as guards round about to watch them. Then 3 Nephi 3, 21, 24. Therefore, we will prepare ourselves in the center of our lands, and we will gather all our armies together, and we will not go against them, but we will wait till they shall come against us. Here is the center of the land. Southern Illinois, that 1/3 of the state where they're finding all these strange artifacts in big quantities. Let's have a look. Next one. From the Ohio River in the east to the Mississippi in the west, this is dotted line. We have, according to this up here, 30 fortified hilltops. But right now, I have 41 fortified hilltops. These guys, whoever they were, came to the center of their land, and they built fortified hilltops all the way across, from one side to the other, using the mighty Ohio and the mighty Mississippi as their other defenses to the east, west, and the south. Guess what the archaeologists have dated these hilltop forts? 16 AD in the Book of Mormon, 50 AD for the Hopewell people. How close do we have to get? Parallel. Center of the land, a fortified area. We find numerous strange artifacts in the United States right here in this area. And this area today is still called Little Egypt. This is a picture of one of the fortified areas. The forts are in terrible condition. They're all falling apart. Next one. Just got a couple of slides here. There's another shot. Stone walls high up on the hilltops, looking down at their enemy. The backs to the south is open. They just fortify against the north side. This is a photograph of a photograph that I took off in a local museum. This is a 10-foot wall here. Here's a couple of guys standing. One of the towns there in southern Illinois is called Old Stone Fort, Illinois. If you go there, it's a small town. It's not much big. Actually, it's probably about half the size of Wellsville. Every house in that town, just like the pioneers came here and built their early houses, the houses in that town, all the foundations for the barns, the sheds, the downtown buildings, all the material came from Old Stone Fort. They went up to the hilltop with wagons, quarried off the stone, and carried it down to their village and used it to build. So a lot of these forts, they're taken right down to the ground. You can still see where the walls are because of compaction. Nothing will grow there, and stones are still set flat in the ground. But many of the walls are gone because they've been quarried off by the local settlers. This is the Encyclopedia of Mormonism, which came out about 10 years ago. It's a 4-volume set. And what caught my attention up here is that the guys that put this together said that members of the church have a common assumption that the hill Cumorah is in New York State. Well, that kind of got my dander up a little. I said, common assumption? Well, anyway, That's what it says. So, let's take a look at a couple of key people that you'll recognize and see if it's an assumption or not. Next one. Focus, please. This is taken from Heber C. Kimball. It's called A Book of the Life of Heber C. Kimball, written by Orson F. Whitney, published in Salt Lake, 1888, pages 25 and 26. Now, I'm going to read this here. From the time Father Bosley is Kimball's grandfather, located near Avon, he found and plowed up axes and irons that had sufficient to make his mill irons and had always abundance of iron on hand without purchasing. Where is Avon? Avon is in western New York. It's about 20 miles from the hill Cumorah. You see that up here? He had such an abundance of iron on hand, the guy never purchased for his blacksmithery. Think about that. He had just to go out in the fields and pick up old weapons from the hill Cumorah area and resmelt them into the tools of the day. And this is Heber C. Kimball telling us this. In the towns of Bloomfield, Victor, Manchester, and the regions round about, there were hills upon the tops which were entrenchments and fortifications, and in them were human bones, axes, tomahawks, points of arrows, beads, pipes, which were frequently found. And it was a common occurrence in the country to plow up axes, which I have done many times myself. I have visited the fortifications on the tops of those hills. The hill Cumorah is a high hill for that country and had the appearance of a fortification or entrenchment around it. In the state of New York, probably there are hundreds of these fortifications which are now visible. And readers of the Book of Mormon, etc., 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 whispering from the dust, Heber C. Kimball. Well, that's from Heber C. Kimball. I don't think he assumed it was a hill Cumorah. He knew it was a hill Cumorah. Now we're going to hear from Brother Talmage, the Apostle Talmage. This is a letter taken down by this gentleman here on Eastern States Mission during this time. It comes out of the book, Just One Cumorah by Riley L. Dixon, published in 1958. Focus, please. We, James Talmage and J. Golden Jensen, went immediately to the hill Cumorah and viewed the spot where Angel Moroni had ages before deposited the golden plates according to the instructions of the Lord. Standing on the crest of the hill, Cumorah, with outstretched arm, describing as he seemed to visualize that the last great battle between the armies of the Nephites and the Lamanites, he had found, as a result of a survey and extensive analysis made by him while a student in an Eastern university, the soils of the surrounding area to be very rich in calcium and phosphate content. What causes calcium and phosphate to be rotted in the ground? What's that? Bones. Thank you. Bones. With further investigation, he discovered that there was a lack of these elements in the land which lay further than a few miles in radius in any direction from the hill Cumorah. To him, this discovery was indicative of the fact that there was decaying of bones of the Nephite and Lamanite armies that perished there. This is Brother James Talmage. What was his profession? Anybody know? Geologist. Should we take his study seriously? I think we should. Brother Talmage. Mormon 8:2. And now it came to pass after the great and tremendous battle at Cumorah, behold, the Nephites who had escaped into the country southward were hunted by the Lamanites until they were all destroyed. The Native Americans talk about wiping out the Hopewell people. To them, they talk about the great battle in New York. They call it the place where the hill ran red with blood all day. That's the name they give it. The hill of the place where the blood ran red all day. However, it was not the last fight. The last fight to them was here, whichever southward country these guys disappeared into. And we also have a trail on that. Next one, please. We know now at the Falls of the Ohio by Louisville, Kentucky, which is right here, there was a tremendous battle. And here, the Indians of the East tell us is where they finished off the Hopewell culture. Bones have been found here in great quantity and been well documented by archaeologists that something major took place here. And most of the killing took place in Kentucky. Kentucky is an Algonquin word. It means the place of blood. So bad was the killing here because they killed women and children also. Even when historic times came, Daniel Boone, when he came across the pass, the Cumberland, and settled into Kentucky and founded Boonesboro, there were no Indians living in what we now call the state of Kentucky.